Mourners are to begin paying their respects to late former US President Jimmy Carter. This kicks off a carefully choreographed six-day farewell for America's longest-lived president. Carter's state funeral officially began with a solemn tribute to the 39th president outside his family's farm. On Thursday, Jimmy Carter's remains will travel to Washington in Rotunda until his state funeral at Washington National Cathedral. While America paid its tribute, incoming President Donald Trump fumes over the fact that American flags would still be lowered to half-mast in honor of Carter during Trump's January the 20th inauguration. His remarks come a day after he plans to attend his funeral. Carter, though he only served one term in office, was known for his distinguished second act of humanitarian work. With this ongoing funeral and incoming president, America stands at a crossroads between the ideologies and policies of the two presidents. Joining us for this is our reporter live, Aditya Wawan. Aditya, why is Trump annoyed at these flags being lowered?
Well, you see, Trump, he is actually very unpredictable, Tom. You see, he at one time, at a moment, he is very excited about something. At the very next moment, he gets, saddened about one thing. So his unpredictability, he is very predictable at times, and also because he is to appear for his in the case relating to hush money case, so that tension might be on his mind, but let us just put this into perspective. Jimmy Carter has been a very influential American president in the past. What you say, like Jimmy Carter, he is often known as he has brokered many peace deals. In 1978, he brokered this Camp David agreement between Egypt as well as Israel, and then Egypt, the then Prime Minister of Egypt was Sadat al-Anwar, and Israel, and at that time Egypt became the first country to recognize Israel, and in return Israel returned Egypt the Sinai Peninsula.
Thank you very much, Aditya, for that. We will now move on to our guest, Manas Chawla, who's CEO for London Politica, and Rohan Gunrawata, international affairs expert. I wanted to start this discussion with how different Trump and Jimmy Carter were. Obviously, Carter gave the Panama Canal back to Panama. Trump wants it back. Carter was well known for his environmental policies. Trump obviously opposes them. Manas Chawla, I was wondering, how do these presidents differ?
Well, I think, as you correctly pointed out, they differ pretty significantly in their policy stances, but they also differ in the political backdrop against which they're operating. I think right now we're operating in a moment of extreme political polarization, and the sheer amount of vitriol is what characterizes political debate in the United States. When Carter was around, when Carter was president, that certainly wasn't the case. The televised public debates were much more cordial. And there was a much greater sense of bipartisanship. That's marked by the fact that Carter passed more significant pieces of legislation than did Reagan, than did Bill Clinton, than did Barack Obama, despite all of these having 4 more years than Carter did. And so I think, in many ways, lots of historians will mark Carter's life as a failure. I would argue they do so quite sort of preemptively, because a lot of his policies bore fruit in a historical context, not simply in an electoral context. And as for his differences with Donald Trump, I think they're as significant as you point out. Carter famously was the first American president to recognize the importance of climate change. And over 50 years on, Donald Trump still denies the very validity of the extensive research that backs up all the science behind climate change. He's significantly said to reduce the protections that the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States offers. Carter was also influential in establishing, education policy, in sort of thawing tensions with the Soviet Union then, creating the sort of SALT treaties that limited arms proliferation, and particularly that of nuclear weapons. Under Donald Trump, given that it's now been 50 years and we've faced the end of some of those treaties, all of those things hang in the balance.
Thank you very much. I wanted to move on to Rohan Gunarachna. Could Trump's perceived issues with such morning action stem from ego? Jimmy Carter called him an illegitimate president in 2019.
Carter is a principled leader. He is not a classic politician. Carter is a very far-reaching leader. He could operate, he could navigate across the ideological divide. He could build friendships, shake hands with people with different points of view. In contrast, Trump is more a businessman rather than also a classic politician. So the way they operate is very different. Certainly, President Trump will learn a lot from how President Carter conducted himself. Certainly, Carter is a statesman who will be remembered for a very long time, not only by the Americans, but by the rest of the world for what he did. For example, the Camp David Accords. For example, climate change. So I think that these are both politicians. They are both politicians, but they are different. And people emerge from time to time to meet the changing circumstances. Today, the world is very different. Today, a man like Carter will be invaluable because America has to reach out to China, America has to reach out to Russia, America has to reach out to Iran. America has to create global stability and security. So you need people who will think of the world rather than thinking only of their interests and their nation's interests.
Thank you very much. Manas, I wanted to move to you on this next one. Given their strained relationship, is it surprising that Trump is attending Carter's funeral? Will Trump really learn from any of Carter's policies?
Well, so on your first point, I don't think it's surprising that he's attending the funeral. I think these things are a matter of protocol. And I think there's certainly a generation of Americans that, while they might disagree with Carter philosophically, politically, they respect him as a statesman. And if Trump were to not attend the funeral, that would really, frankly, be a shot in the foot for himself. As for whether he will learn from Carter's lesson and his leadership and his reverence for human rights, I certainly hope so. And I'm sure most of the world does as well. Am I hopeful for that? Am I putting my money on it? Probably not. And I think you can see evidence of the fact in his sort of very statement that he finds something wrong with lowering the flags to half-mast to give Carter respect for his funeral. The very idea that this is the first time that this is happening, potentially during someone's inauguration, which is what he tweeted or posted on his Truth Social platform, that's a lie. That's not true. If I remember correctly, on January 20th, 1973, Richard Nixon was being inaugurated just before President Carter, and the flags were at half-mast because of Harry Truman's funeral at the time. And so, you can distinguish just from the very fact, or just from the way that Trump has approached this very delicate issue, based, simply on a mistruth, but made it about himself, that it's very unlikely that he'll learn from Carter's example. But I hope I'm proven wrong nonetheless.
Rohan, I wanted to move to you on this next one. One of the things that Carter was criticised for was the handling of the Iranian hostage crisis from 1979 to 81. We have a similar situation right now in Gaza with Israel. Do you think Trump's more hawkish policy will prove to be better?
We need a strong leader today to manage the situation in the Middle East. I visited Iran, I visited the US Embassy subsequently. And I want to tell you that Carter is a good man. I love him. I've been to the Carter Center, but I want to tell you that there were certain things that he did, because he's an idealist, that didn't really work. So perhaps a leader like Trump is necessary that will threaten Hamas and tell them, before the 20th of January, you release the hostages or you're going to pay for it. So sometimes you need very tough leaders who will even threaten terrorist organizations. That's why I said that Trump has emerged at a time where you need a tough American leader who will take tough decisions. But certainly, as my brilliant friend just now spoke, I want to say that it's very difficult for a leader like Trump to learn. So I think that, I hope that other American leaders, American bureaucrats, American departments of defense, state, they will persuade Trump that there must be a balance when you engage countries and when you engage threat actors in a way where it will not bring more harm, but will overall contribute to the security of the world.
I want to say thank you very much to both guests for joining us today in this discussion.